Welcome to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 281 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. Let's get started. Let's do this. Here's my screen. It's March 2nd, 2022, and it's episode 281. And a reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I have a general idea of the sorts of things I want to do today. We're going to be looking at some neat infos, maybe some intermittent test failures, and trying to pay down some test debt there. But, you know, we might get sidetracked. We might get derailed. Who knows what'll happen? But, you know, that's half the fun, right? Is getting into trouble and trying to get out of it again. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at here is available to you so that you can click on the links, follow along, you know, and it will automatically update as I edit it. So if you want to find a link to it, it is available in the Air Mozilla. If you're watching on Air Mozilla, it'll be in the details section of the video. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be down in the video description. And if you're watching on Twitch, then I'm about to drop it into the Twitch chat right now. There it is. There's an episode guide. I want to point out The Joy of Coding has a completely viewer-driven episode guide. Viewers just like you contribute interesting information about each episode so that, you know, if you're watching a previous episode, maybe you're watching this episode in the future and you want to know what I talked about and what sort of things happened, you can read the episode guide to get a sense of it. Also, it can include other information like you know, if you want to submit your own corrections, addenda, expand on a topic I'd talked about, send those in too. I'm happy to include them. So if you're not sure how to send them in, there's a guide in the agenda on how to contribute. It's hosted on GitHub as a static website, so go check it out. Okay, well, today what I wanted to do was look at some neat infos that have been sitting in my queue for a little bit, and then I also wanted to start digging into some intermittent test failures that you know, have been haunting us a little bit. And I'll go into a little bit of an explanation of what an intermittent test failure is and some strategies that I've used over the years to try and solve them, try and fix them. There is a question, sidetrack. Do you know if Mozilla has done anything to help anti-war efforts? Am I aware of anything that Mozilla, the organization, is doing? I am not. I mean, maybe peripherally. I know that I think it was either the Mozilla blog or the Firefox blog have put out a bunch of guides on how to avoid misinformation, how to be sort of to sharpen up people's digital media literacy. And I also know that what else has happened? Any other related things? I can't think of anything else that Mozilla as an organization has directly done. But I know that individual people, myself included, have been, have been contributing to various causes. I'll actually plug one because I don't know if anyone here is Canadian, anyone watching. If you are Canadian, then the federal government is matching donations to the Red Cross for the Ukraine humanitarian. Let's see here, humanitarian crisis appeal. That's the page. So let me pull this over. So I'm gonna put this this link into the agenda, and the federal government will match donations up to. They've already done it. It's already been done. The matching. So at least 10 million has already been contributed and the federal government has matched it. That's cool. But you can donate even more on top of it. And it will go to the Ukraine Humanitarian Crisis Appeal. So let me put that link in here. Are you Canadian? Then consider donating to the Ukraine Humanitarian Crisis Appeal. And there are likely similar things, if you're not Canadian, and I know a number of you are not, I would imagine there are similar things. If you have a local Red Cross organization for your country, see if they've got things you can donate to. If you've got the disposable income, if you have the means, I think that's one way you can help out. I think there are other ways that that you can also help out, but I want to warn you, like, as a way sort of related to what Mozilla, I think we'd put out the, like, beware of misinformation, beware of deceptive actors who are trying to take advantage of the like what's going on in the Ukraine right now. One of the things to keep in mind is if you've got a bunch of people who are interested in donating money to, like, help the cause or help people, you're going to have people out there trying to take advantage of that to, I don't know, make it seem as if the money is going to the right place when it's actually going into, like, their pockets. So be extremely cautious. If donating money to your causes that's a good idea, but, like, check them out. Pay very close attention to what's going on and what you're contributing to, because if you're not careful, you might get scammed. So the Red Cross, make sure it's the actual Red Cross. If it's some charity maybe, or some institution that you maybe haven't heard of, kind of dig into it a little bit, see what you can find out before you start throwing money around, because people will, humans being what they are, there are bad actors out there who will try and take advantage of people who are, trying to do the right thing. So just be sharp. Yeah, look out, make sure it's not, like, Red Cross with a K or something. Like, don't donate to the Red Cross or, like, the Red Cross. Like, don't donate to those. Donate to the actual Red Cross or what have you. Okay, so what are the things we were going to look at today? Yeah, I have some neat infos. Let's look into those. So the first one is for this bug. It's about the tab animation regression test, aka TART. There was a regression earlier last month, and I was need infoed on this 5 days ago, so I'm a little behind on answering this. So basically, there was like a 4% regression. TreeHerder has detected a Talos performance regression from this push, which was an IPC cleanup. And then I was needed info saying, any idea how this patch could cause this? Nika indicated that in the reviews that unsound, num, unqueued messages always return 0, and so it's removed in the patch. Perhaps this isn't the case. None of the subtests are above low confidence, but the final value is high confidence. Also, close to half the subtests are improvements, though perhaps slightly less large than average regressions, and noise is down a lot. I can't imagine that this regression has anything to do with unsound, unqueued messages. Like that. Performance of doing a couple fewer virtual calls for it should have no impact. The only difference I'm seeing here that we now acquire the message channel's mutext when asking is closed, and that we no longer update the atomic output queue length. Okay, interestingly, looking at the graph, it appears that the regression is for a similarish amount to the recent improvement reported in this bug, although I have no idea how they could be related. Perhaps there's some optimizer threshold which we happen to be very near right now and is causing small swings on this particular test. Let's take a quick look at the patch and see what it's doing. So IPC, if you're not familiar with IPC, that stands for Interprocess Communication. It's the layer within Firefox that manages sending messages between processes. And if you're curious, there's this folder Chromium. Yes, we did bring this in from the Chromium browser project. We're basically imported their IPC layer and we use it. We customize it heavily, but the underlying mechanism for communicating to the individual processes and doing it in a cross-platform way, we bring in from the Chromium project and have done since I think the very beginning when we were starting to do IPC stuff with, like, the plugins, like sequestering plugins into their own process. So it looks like the main difference, like I'm not really super familiar with this code. I'm looking for anything that smells like it might be related. But this is so down, like this is deep in the plumbing of interprocess communication, and it's not clear to me. Yeah, there's going to be a mutex lock here when sending a message. And so maybe taking that lock could cause a signal. Let's take a look at the graph. Is there a graph? Subtests. So we see a high confidence change here from 2.3 to 2.47. 2.36 to 2.47. Randall's right. The noise metric went way down, and the individual test confidence the changes are quite. The individual changes are quite low. The confidence. But like in aggregate, when you put them all together, I guess the confidence is high. I actually wonder if the reduction in noise like noise is like, you can consider the measurements to be this like scatter plot of scores for various things, and noise I think is like the breadth of the scatter plot, you know, like what are the standard deviations. We have like this noise metric, and ideally your measurements, performance measurements, will not be very noisy. They're going to be, if you're lucky, they'll be sensitive enough to detect regressions, but not so sensitive that like someone coughing in the next room causes the needle to go like or anything like that. So reducing the noise metric is actually good. And I wonder if maybe this is really where the, what's responsible for what's going on. So the noise metric before, here you can kind of get a visualization of the spread here with these dots of where the scores were between a value of 1 and 7. And then let's look at here. We kind of contract a little bit. That's so interesting. Yeah, if I had to make a guess, I would say it's actually the reduction in the noise, which is causing a greater clarity. It's like increasing the clarity of the test and making it more accurate, and so is causing the the underlying score to sort of tighten up. So that would be my read on it. I'm no data scientist, but looking at the subtests and the noise metric, I suspect what's happening here is that we're simply reducing the noise, and that's causing a truer sense of the score here to emerge, and that truer sense is at a slightly higher score. I think reduce the actual absolute value of the regression in milliseconds is a fraction of a millisecond. Like this value, if we look at the subtests, each of these is I believe a measurement of the number of milliseconds it takes to paint each frame in order to do a particular type of tab animation. And so, we're well within the 16 millisecond frame budget. The actual absolute value of the regression is in milliseconds is a fraction of a millisecond. I don't think it's worth the time to really dig into what happened here. We should engineering time to really dig into what happened here. I think we should take the win on the noise metric and take the apparent regression and close this as won't fix. So I'm just going to do that. Oh yeah, Smurf D points out, and we interrupt your regularly scheduled joy of coding to mention that the MDN, aka developer.mozilla.org, has been rethemed. There's a new design to it. It's got light and dark mode. It's got this whole new look, and it's got a new logo. This was something that I think, if I remember correctly, there was like a blog post about the new logo. So yeah, check it out. A new homepage focused on community, redesigned article pages for improved navigation, new logo chosen by our community. Like there was like voting. And there's going to be a way for you to contribute to MDN with a premium subscription service, which will allow you to like, I guess do different things. Like we're not going to restrict pages, obviously, like they're all going to be free, but like you get additional features, I think, whenever you get a subscription. Like I'm trying to remember what those sorts of things are. Personalization features, personalized features, some kind of premium subscription service. Yeah, I don't exactly know what is going to be offered, but it's not like it's going to, like, the documents will all still be free. Like you will be able to access all of them for free. So don't worry about it, that you're not going to have to like pay to read about color scheme or something, but you'll get additional features on top of what MDN currently does, which is a great way of contributing to MDN. Like what a valuable resource, like I think it has become the de facto documentation for the web platform is MDN. And it's not just Mozilla and the wider Mozilla community who are contributing to it. It's like all of the major web browsers are contributing to MDN. Like we've all kind of agreed that this is where the documents should be, and that's good. The other thing you should know is you can contribute to MDN if you're curious. If maybe you want to make some things better or expand on some stuff, it is an open source repository. And if you don't have to, like, it used to be like a wiki. You'd have to know like the wiki syntax, but it's not like that anymore. Now it's all in Markdown, I think. So if you go to like, let's look at a recent change, for example, to a document. Adapt file reader API to new event structure. This was committed 3 hours ago. So like it is up to date stuff. And yeah, this documentation here for the file reader web API, they're updating it to use, I guess, better syntax. So I guess it's it's Markdown, and then there's some other stuff. Like I don't exactly know what this kind of curly brace stuff is, but presumably there is documentation on how you can contribute. So you should check it out if you want to contribute to MDN, make it better, become involved in that community. It's a really, really valuable resource. Like of all the things, Mozilla has developed a number of things that have been really valuable for the web. I think MDN is like in the top 5 for sure. Firefox is another one in the top 5. Okay, so let's move on. Oh, before I forget, let me just drop the link to that blog post in here. New MDN, so that you can check that out. Okay, what is the other thing I wanted to look at? So we looked at this. Conclusion won't fix. Here's another bug I was need infoed on. Picture-in-picture. Toggle icons display place should be customizable. And someone was assigned to this. And this was way back in the day. This was way, way back in the day when we had the old toggle 3 years ago. And then there was a bunch of discussion about it. And then more recently, I was info'd by the release management bot saying, like, hey, take a look at this bug. The assignee hasn't logged in the last 7 months. Ooh, tea delivery. Thank you very much. And Anya, who is our intrepid picture-in-picture product manager, amongst other things, she says, let's treat this as part of a more holistic work on pip settings in the future. The path that allows developer customization is now something we'll be looking at, though. Currently, there's a workaround for using a keyboard shortcut, but it's not great. And apparently temporarily broken in Firefox 98. That was as of 5 days ago. That's interesting. I wasn't actually aware that the keyboard shortcut is currently broken. That's not great. But it sounds like what we need to do is just keep this in the backlog. Agreed. I'm going to mark the patch as abandoned, and we can keep this in the backlog. So let's, because yeah, I don't think this patch would apply cleanly anymore anyways. I also think, actually, hasn't this already been done? I think this has already been done. Hang on a second. Let's go to YouTube for a second. And let's pull up Mr. I ate the world's largest slice of pizza. Okay, so if you right-click on the toggle here, there is an item to move the picture-in-picture toggle to the left side. I think this has been done. So actually, on closer inspection, I think this has already been done in, and then I should find what the bug was where it was done. So move toggle. What was the name? The actual name there? It was something like move toggle. Move picture-in-picture toggle to left side. So move picture. So here, there's a test added for it. Yeah, it's this bug. We should dupe this. So I'm going to mark this as a dupe. Okay, so that bug is closed. Hooray! Next up, duplicate of bug such and such. Okay, here is another thing I was info'd on recently. Let's close all that and go to the bug. Log spam during a crash test. Can access property of remove event listener on the URL query stripping service. What is this thing? I noticed this JSA error in my terminal when running a crash test locally today. It seems harmless, but seems probably unexpected. It's additional noise that could cause confusion or a wild goose chase. Looks like it was most recently touched in this, though he's been on PTO for the next month. We are reviewers, and PVZ, Paul, wants to know if we should just add a null check here on shutdown. Yeah, for sure. I think it's sufficient, or should we unregister the observer in a different shutdown phase? So shutdown. Shutdown. Who calls this? Shutdown happens in XP-COM shutdown. And if I remember correctly, no, that's not where I wanted to go. It's like observer notifications. Seriously, we don't have this anymore? Oh, all right. There was a document, a really good document on the observer notifications. Maybe it's here now. Yeah, okay. Initial notification of XPCOM shutdown. All primary modules should begin to shut down, should release any root references. Any unsaved user data should be saved. Profile before change. Change net teardown. Change teardown. Profile before change. I think profile before change might be better. That's that's oftentimes when we sort of clean up. I wonder if profile before change would be a better spot. Failing that, then yes, a null check is probably fine. If shared, we only care about removing the event. Actually, do we care about removing the event shutdown? If we're shutting down, I don't actually see why we need to remove the event listener. I guess it's in order to avoid a leak. A shutdown leak. But if the shared data structure has gone away, then we shouldn't be leaking anymore. Like the reference would be gone. Or on second thought, do we even need to remove the event listener? This is a singleton, this is a service. There's only ever one. And once its event listener is added, we presumably always want it around until the process goes away. So do we even need to remove it? Or can we skip that and while still avoiding shutdown leak reports? If we can, that might be simplest. So I think my suggestions are: don't remove the event handler, and see if shutdown leaks are reported. If not, if they are, then 2, reported in automation. If they are, then try profile before change instead. And if that's not enough, then do a null check in the shutdown handler. I also note that the shutdown function is async when it probably doesn't need to be. All right, need info done. Commented. Okay, so now that we've done that, I want to dig into this intermittent test failure. We actually looked into this a few weeks back. I wanted to talk just more broadly about intermittent tests because I feel like there are a number of people, both volunteer contributors and staff, who will periodically run into these things and not necessarily know what they are or how to deal with them. And so I wanted to sort of describe some of the strategies I've used over the years to try and deal with intermittent test failures. Send your questions into the chat if you have any. So let me quickly start by describing what an intermittent test failure is. What is an intermittent test failure? So we have a very broad range of tests. We have everything from like unit tests for individual functions, and we can run a bunch of them in parallel. And then we have integration tests that test whole like systems of things that talk to one another. And then we have, reference tests that compare, snapshots against reference snapshots and do image diffing. We have performance tests. We have like all kinds of different tests. And one of the things that we have to deal with, and I think any sufficiently large software system with a robust testing infrastructure doing things like integration testing will eventually run into, are things like intermittent test failures or flaky tests. I don't know what the terminology is in other shops, but here at Mozilla, we call them intermittent test failures or intermittent oranges, or because orange is the color that you'll see inside of TreeHerder for a test failure. Let's actually take a look at TreeHerder right now. So each of these blocks here represents a push into our our CI infrastructure. There are landings in the code base, and we get a bunch of jobs that happen for each landing, like a whole bunch of jobs. And periodically you'll see orange, the color orange. Orange means something failed, and if it's been starred, it means that someone triaged it. And in this particular case, I just picked this one at random. This is an XPC shell test that failed due to a known intermittent test failure, bug 1585916. We have a intermittent test failure whenever, this path doesn't match what we think it's supposed to. And so this test periodically will fail. Excuse me. And so, that's not great. Ideally, your tests will fail whenever something is wrong. Because if they pass only like 70% of the time, and 30% of the time you've got like false positives on failures, you then start to not trust your tests as much. And there have been various attempts at fixing this and addressing this. And we haven't got a great solution. We've got a couple of different ways you can think about pushes to, say, try or something, or to Mozilla Central. We have this thing called push health, which is helpful. So we could take a look at a push. Let's look at a push that has some intermittent test failures here, and then we're gonna go to push health. Push health can kind of like analyze the push and tell you which things you really need to be worried about. For tests, like it knows, for example, that there were 8 issues, but they were all probably intermittent test failures. And so it's able to sort of like surface the things you really should care about. But that is kind of wallpapering over the problem, which is that you have tests that are unreliable sometimes. And this is just going to be a thing you have to manage. I don't think, a sufficiently sophisticated software system that's using concurrency and, threads, dealing with things like timers and input event ordering and, any sort of like non-determinism, basically routes for non-determinism to enter the system, then you get these problems. You get intermittent test failures. And I don't think there is like a solution for a, sufficiently robust testing set, testing suite. You're just going to get this. If you don't have intermittent test failures for a sophisticated piece of software like Firefox, in my opinion, either that's a miracle or you don't have enough tests. You're not testing enough. You're not doing enough integration testing. And we do a lot of integration testing. I actually think the vast majority of tests that are written for Firefox, I don't know if this is true, but at least on my team, the vast majority of tests are like integration tests where, if you were to add a button and the button does something, our test for it will be to actually launch the browser, click on the button, and see what happens, and like test the contents of the area of the content area, or test whether or not a tab gets opened, or test, you know, a window or a panel or XYZ, rather than testing like individual functions within the piece of code itself. Sometimes the code is written such that you can write individual unit tests, which are handy, but I don't think there's a silver bullet. I think it's always a healthy mix. You want a healthy mix, a variety of unit tests and integration tests, because unit tests will not catch everything, and integration tests will also not catch everything. And I also think you're going to get the vast majority of intermittent test failures on integration tests, because you have a greater exposure to non-determinism, I suspect, because you have more systems, more components of a system talking to one another, usually in integration testing. Okay, so that's what an intermittent test failure is. So I'll say Mike gives his sloppy definition in the video. And then how do you deal with it? Well, that's a great question. It really will depend on test to test. But the way I attack it, let me talk to you a little bit and describe the lifetime of an intermittent test failure. Like what I find normally happens is, you know, tests have landed, and maybe you land a new test, or you land a patch or something, and a tree sheriff, the people who are responsible for making sure our continuous integration is healthy and everything's looking green, will say, hey, this test just started to go flaky. Like this light started to go from green to orange sometimes. So can you take a look? And we'll get a score. You know, like let's take a look at this one in particular. This is one such bug. Like a bug will get filed, and we have, you know, the ability for sheriffs to star the intermittent test failures and sort of associate them with bugs. And from that, we are able to sort of score how frequently a thing fails. And for this one, for example, this one previously was failing before it was disabled. It was failing 39 times out of 3,445 pushes. And so we can get a score there of like 0.011 failures per push. It's the number 26 most frequent failure this week. But it happened more than 30 times. And so resolving this bug is a high priority. So this is the bot just sort of like periodically reminding everybody like, hey, this is a big deal. And so what happened for this one is that the test 12 days ago was disabled. We just decided this thing is more trouble than it's worth right now. Let's disable the test. And then it looks like the test was still failing. Hang on. Let's look at how the test was disabled. The test was disabled on Linux. So we were able to choose, to be more fine-grained and choose how and when to disable a test. Like we can choose by platform or what kind of build or whatnot, which is very handy. In this case, it looks like this patch just skipped us if we were on Linux. So we still got coverage on Windows and Mac OS, which is better than just disabling it across the board. I see some questions. How is the failed test attached to bugs, like the one you looked at there? So, like, how is a test failure? Well, let's take a look. Let's kind of pretend we're a tree sheriff, because this is, I think, what they would see is like you'd look at they'd look at TreeHerder like this, and they'll see something like, oh wow, the sheriffs are very active today. I don't see anything unstarred, and I imagine I wouldn't in general because they're so good. Let's see if we can find one that's not starred. We might have a better luck looking at try, actually, because the sheriffs don't. So yeah, they'd see like they'd see an orange highlighted like this. Let's look for a Moki test or like a DevTools test here. Okay, so they'd see a push and it'd be like going orange like this. And what they would do, I think, is they choose the job, and they probably have like keyboard shortcuts, and there's like a more efficient way of doing it. But they choose the job, and the thing that parsed the log is able to look at the bug list of known intermittents and do like sort of fuzzy matching to suggest like, hey, is this failure this? Is it that? And so a human still needs to kind of go like, yes, it's this, yes, it's that, or no, it's none of these. I need to file a new bug. Like I think you can, if you click on this, you can just sort of get a form for filing a brand new bug from the test failure, and that's sort of like a nice interface for our sheriffs. But they can also do it in bulk. They can like find a bunch of similar failures and just say like this. It's all this one, and then they mark it as and they say like it's an intermittent. I'll add a comment about what it is. I'll add a related bug. Then they hit save, and that kind of like the TreeHerder infrastructure goes like, okay, I understand. I've learned that these failures are related to these jobs. The failures related to this bug. And then periodically the bot will run to comment on the associated bugs to give them updates. And as I understand it, there is work underway to try and automate some of this, to use like a trained machine learning model to, do the mapping. We have used machine learning for stuff like this in the past for things like bug classification. We actually have a bot that if it sees a bug in the wrong component, it will do its best to place it in the right component. You'll see release management bot, I think, or maybe it's called bug bot. I don't remember, but it'll come around and it'll move like bugs. And that's using a trained machine learning model based on, the bug comment, the summary, and, the description fields that are inserted. Just like, okay, that sounds like it's a, I don't know, toolbar bug, that sort of thing. Kind of went on a tangent. So tactics for addressing intermittent test failures. Well, the first thing, always, Mike's guide to dealing with intermittent test failures. If you can, get it to reproduce locally. And there are lots of different ways you can do that. So in the one that we're looking at, I'm confusing myself. I'm going to close these bugs. We're going to look at this one again. The test failures were all happening on which platforms? They're all happening on Linux. So, that's a hint that the test might actually be related to Linux. And that makes sense actually, because there is there's a lot of difference between the platforms, and something like window focus or like there's any number of things that might be different from platform to platform. Once you have like a failure, if you've got like a failure report like this, one of the neat things you can do is you can look at one of the failure jobs, in this case, February 10th. I actually don't know if this is going to work. We might have actually tried this, where we tried to look at the screenshot. Yeah, it doesn't have the screenshot. So for timeouts, I don't think we take screenshots. Or if we do, they're like fully broken. Like what is this file? What's in here? Let's open up a terminal here. What is this URL? Points to this, and there's nothing there. It's just we get nothing back. It's an empty file, so that's why it's a broken PNG. So yeah, I'm pretty sure a screenshot either wasn't taken or maybe it's gotten thrown away, but that'd be pretty strange that we would have thrown away that and not any of the other artifacts, because I think we still have all these other artifacts, like this log is still there, etc. So when we throw stuff away, it's usually the whole bunch of it. So I think the screenshot just wasn't taken. And so, we've got some clues here. Look at the platform it failed on. Do you have access to it? See if you can reproduce on that platform. Now, I happen to have a Linux machine that I have access to. So let's get access to it. Let's get into it. Hang on, I have to make sure that there's I have to sign into it. Just want to make sure there's nothing on there that has to do with the security bug that I was working on. Yes, there is stuff in there. The security bug I was working on. So let me hide all of this. Go away, go away, go away. Hold on just 1 second. When was the last time the repository was updated? A couple weeks ago. I haven't used my this machine in a while. So I am signed into my Linux box right now. What we're going to do is we're going to look at what kind of test failure, like what mode we were in. Now, it looks like actually most of the test failures occur for opt builds, optimized builds, as opposed to debug builds. It can happen for debug builds, but it doesn't have to. So let's see if we can reproduce it using an opt build. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull from central. I don't have any changes on top, do I? I think this my Linux box maybe needs to get itself in order. Watchman has been very, like, the disk has been very slow lately on that Linux box. All right, we're going to pull from central and update to the tip of it. Hopefully you can see what I'm typing. Let me pump up the font. Pump the jam, pump it up. And then we're going to do an artifact build. And we're going to re-enable the test. So remember, the test is, where's the name of the test? Browser, devices, get user media, unprompted access. And the test was originally disabled, so we're going to re-enable it. It was disabled under browser-based content test WebRTC. Browser-based content test WebRTC. Legacy indicator browser.ini. Unprompted access. Right here. So I'm just going to comment that out for now. And then we're going to build our opt build. Artifact build. And build. This might take a second or two. But while that's coming through, I can sort of like lay out our game plan. So see if you can reproduce it on that platform. Chances are, if it's restricted to a particular platform, you have a better chance of reproducing it there, which should, hopefully not be surprising. And then there are a couple of techniques you can use, reproducing using verify, chaos mode, start at, end at, or a mixture of the above. So I will briefly go into that. Once I have my build, I can sort of demonstrate. And if people have questions, just drop them into the chat. I'm happy to try and answer them. Okay, we have our build here. I just forgot what I was doing. Right, we're going to run this test. So unprompted access. Let's start. The thing I like to start with is verify. So mock test verify, or mock Moki test verify. I think it works for both. What this is going to do is it's going to run the test in a variety of stressful situations. And I'm going to do this on display 0. I'm signed in. I'm just SSH'd into the machine. I do have a display open I've signed into the desktop on my remote desktop here, but you can't really see it. And so what it'll do is it's going to run the test 40 times in total. The first time it's just going to run the test on repeat 10 times, and then it's going to run it 10 times in individual, with individual startups, and then it will run it 10 times in a row again, but using something called chaos mode, and then it will run it with 10 individual startups also in chaos mode. And while that's running, I'm going to quickly describe what chaos mode is. So one of the things about computers is that you can accidentally rely on things happening in a certain way, and that is often the reasoning. That's often the cause for intermittent test failures. Is your test will pass whenever it's like your expectations have been met, and sometimes your expectations aren't actually being met. Something is different about how the machine is behaving, or how the program is behaving. And that can be for a wide variety of reasons. One of those reasons might be because, a thread executed at a slightly different time in the good case than in the bad case. Or you're taking advantage of the fact that a hash map lookup happened to take a little bit longer. There was like a cache miss or something. And so, a hash table lookup takes a little bit longer on a different thread. And while we're waiting for that, other work happens. And then you get your hash map lookup. And then, the ordering of events might change. So what chaos mode is it's not a thing you ever want to run with as a user. I actually don't think you could. I think you have to be running tests, or you should be running tests when you use chaos mode. What it is it's a way for us to run the browser such that a variety of things are done to the executable to try and coax out these kind of assumptions. I'll give you an example. One of the things chaos mode does is it will randomly reprioritize the threads of the browser and all of its content processes. So that way, if threading execution order may have been involved, then you have a higher probability of sort of detecting that dependency on sort of thread execution order by randomly reordering them. The other thing it does, I think, is there are data structures that are what are called unsorted collections inside of Gecko. You may be familiar with the concept of a set, where a set doesn't implicitly have any kind of order. It just knows whether or not a thing is in it or not. And if part of the code is assuming that a set is in a particular order, sometimes it's taking advantage of that by way mainly of access time, then you could have a bad time. You could cause an intermittent test failure. And so the other thing that chaos mode does is it will randomly reorder the underlying mechanisms powering unordered sets. It'll just reorganize things. What other stuff does chaos mode do? I think there's some other stuff it'll do. It'll alter thread scheduling, network request scheduling, timer scheduling, disk I/O. It'll read and write less than requested amounts. It'll iterate over hash tables in random order. It will randomly refuse to use a cached version of an image. It will delay dispatching threads to encourage dispatch tasks to run, and it will delay task running to encourage sending threads to run. And so these are all the sorts of different features you can turn on and off with chaos mode. When you're using verify, it's using all of them. It uses them all at the same time. So it's a great way of just causing test failures to occur. It certainly makes the browser run slowly. It adds delays here and there, and that's why these tests are still running. I will note, however, I have not seen a single failure. Whenever you're running with mock test verify, or mock test verify, as soon as it hits one failure, it'll bail out. And so we haven't hit it quite yet. Which is too bad. while we're waiting for this, let's do some more detective work and just sort of inspecting the test and the bug. So we had worked on this not that long ago. I think it was in episode 270. Was it 275? When did I work on this last? I commented in the bug when? I commented in the bug last week. Were we working on this last week? No. Have I been doing this all? Why is this image here? Port view controls. When was I working on this? I must not have taken a note about it. That's too bad. Sorry about that, folks. So I did work on it in the past, and I had created a whoopsie daisy, a try push of a thing that I thought was like a speculative fix, but it didn't do it. You know, the test failed because something, because notification silencing timed out. I wonder if my solution, which was to force focus, hang on, let's take a look at the patch itself. Potential test fix. What I did was I made it so that I promise focusing the top window of the browser that we request the device from. And this is just the the mechanism for testing it. And this caused a separate test to fail. It actually, I wonder, we didn't actually see the associated test failing. So maybe we were on to something. And it's just that we have changed an assumption that a separate test is relying on. So let's take a look at the log real quick. See, like the test ran and it passed. And we could actually re-trigger this a number of times and see if the original test fails ever. Let's do that. Let's re-trigger this job, even though this was like a week old or however old this is. Let's see whether or not it was February 16th, so it's about half a month old. I can re-trigger these jobs, and we can see whether or not the original test fails. Because if not, then maybe we can build on top of the solution and like figure out why this one is failing. Aha! Oh, this one just says that the test exceeded the timeout threshold. Which is slightly different. Timeout threshold means that it exceeded, the test completed, but it was long. It took longer than expected, which is not the same as test unexpected timeout. Test unexpected timeout is when a test sort of halts, like it's waiting for something, and that the wait is never satisfied. So unfortunately, chaos mode didn't seem to, we didn't even get to run it 10 times in chaos mode. Let's try this again, but instead of doing verify, let's just do chaos mode. And I'll show you how to do that. You can do it by setting an environment variable. Chaos mode, Moz _ chaos mode. And then there's a special argument because you want to then opt into the flags. It's 0xFB, which I think is a bit mask that says like everything. Give me everything. Give me it all. And instead of just running it once, let's run until failure. And see what happens there. And while we're waiting on that, let's see if we can pull this change down locally on my Windows machine, at least, or on my Mac OS machine. Where am I here? from a few days ago. Come on now. Why are you taking so long? Why are you breaking my heart? Quit playing games with my heart. Okay. Let's pull Central. This is on my Mac OS machine now, which is also needs to be made up to date. You know, one thing I'll notice, I've noticed right now, is that the you can't really see it. Here's the test running on my Linux machine. The old legacy indicator is missing. And I wonder if I'm running in the wrong mode. Because whenever I run a single test like this, running until failure, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the legacy test WebRTC browser.ini. Turn on the legacy global indicator. And do this. Because I believe that was the when we're failing, it's when we're using the legacy indicator, I think. All right. So we've got our up-to-date Mozilla Central. Let's do an artifact build. Thank goodness for artifact builds, or otherwise you'd be watching me build all day. Okay. So do we see the... I still don't see the legacy indicator. Is the... Oh, there it is. There it was. Okay, okay. That's fine then. I guess we only show the legacy indicator sometimes if we're sharing the microphone and camera for a sufficient amount of time, I guess. At any rate, yeah, let's let that run for a little while in chaos mode. Smurfy asks, 12 days ago on that commit that you saw about, was it Fluent for video controls? The reason that the date was different, I think, is because there's a reason for that. I think whenever you pull down someone else's commit, maybe it's because I didn't work on it on my Mac OS machine. Because you're right, like the commit date should have changed as soon as I altered the commit, or like even pulled down the patch. So I suspect last week, if you take a look, it'd be because I didn't work on my Mac OS machine. I was probably working on my about your comment. No, I'm not sure what you mean, Smurfy. Sorry. I'm trying to compute, can't compute. So hopefully these jobs will run soon and we can get a sense of whether or not the solution I'm thinking of actually will help. If I'm on to something. Okay, well that runs. How's my artifact build? We're done all of the downloading. Let's just sew it all together, package it all together, blah blah blah. Node, node, node. Node, node, node. Okay, great. So we're done here. Let us pull down the patch. It's actually this patch. It's not on Fabricator. So HG import, and then we pass in this link, copy link. Alrighty. It's applied. And then let's see if we can reproduce the test failure that we saw here, which was for notification silencing. Okay. Mock Moki test. Actually, on reflection, like I'm pretty sure that test should be disabled. The feature that's testing never shipped. Hey, all right. So we do have a reproducible test failure here. The wrong window, I think, was getting focused. Okay, let's look at this test. Where were we hanging around here? Oh, the intermittent bug, you said you had commented 12 days ago. Yeah, that's right. I actually think, too, that, like, I commented 12 days ago, but I have a feeling that that was after I'd streamed about it. Like, maybe even a couple of days. Did I stream about it? I can't even remember if I streamed about it. Is any of this bug... I thought for sure we worked on this, like, WebRTC thing on a stream, but I can't actually remember. So, if you know and you remember, like, what the... if you remember what the stream the episode number is, let me know. Let me know. So it looks like test private window is the one that's locking up. We enter the test bound private window and then we just kind of like hang out here. So what we can do is add setup, and then we'll do dot only here. Okay, so we get our failure. Test notification silencing in a private browser window. So we open a new private browsing window, and then we open a tab within that private browsing window, and then we say test notification silencing on the browser. And test notification silencing. For the people who aren't familiar with notification silencing, this is a feature that we have. This is a Firefox a specific feature. I don't think any of the others other browsers offer it. If you're sharing your screen, we offer the ability to mute website notifications while you're sharing. So, you know, if you've got Slack or something in the background and you're sharing your whole screen, we can suppress those. Now, it doesn't work if Slack is running as like a separate application for your desktop, but we can mute website notifications. So anyone using the DOM notification API, we can mute those because we have control over them. So that is what this test is testing. And the way it works is we check to see whether or not we have the indicator. Dump. Promise request device start. I don't know where we're hanging, but let's do some logging and we can find out. Could be at this await. Done awaiting promise. The old printf debugging. Done awaiting observer promise. Then are there any other awaits in here? Yeah, down here. But let's see if it's this first cluster. I had some popcorn or something in my teeth. That's bizarre. It's bizarre. I must have survived the brush I did because I had popcorn yesterday. Okay. Promise request device end. So we got here, and then we're waiting for this, which is the notification being shown. Aha. Must wait for focus. Requesting devices. Must wait for focus. Promise request device end. This thing, the pop-up notification shown. Let's await new promise, resolve, set timeout. Let's wait 5 seconds. Right. So it's actually the browser window. This browser window needs to focus in order to show the pop-up. So for some reason, we focused the wrong window. Which window did we focus? Request device. WebRTC head.js. Browsing context. You either do that or you get it from gbrowser selected browser. So because the browsing context wasn't passed in, well, we did pass in a browser. After type browser if requesting devices dope getting BC for frame. It's kind of bizarre. Why are we focusing the wrong window? Focus. I think we're going to figure this one out, people. I got a good feeling. Like, what was originally focused? I'm pretty sure if we watch that again, the private browsing window was focused. It was in the foreground. We opened the tab, and then the background window was focused. And since this was introduced by us, presumably that's because a browser, the top, this top Chrome window must be the original window. So let's try and prove that. New await, new promise, resolve, set timeout. Resolve 5 seconds. And then we can start debugging. Once we kind of have a sense of where the problem is, we can start looking at it. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's the wrong window. It's the wrong window, people. So this BC do we have the, what is top Chrome window? Get top Chrome window. If is Chrome. Let us, instead of waiting, let us debug. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. Hey, Anti-Sidirp, what you up to? I'm trying to make tests pass, Anti-Sidirp. What are you up to? Just watching some dude stream. Okay, so we hit our breakpoint. Great. Let's see if we can understand what BC is. Is BC BC dot top Chrome window is undefined. That's why. So when we try and focus nothing, right, that's what happens. When you pass nothing to promise focus, it defaults to the original window that the test harness is running in. That's why BC is a browser, not a browsing context. It's a browser in this case. So that's the problem. Okay, let's put that all away. I understand now what's going wrong here. Browsing context for frame. How does this work? If there's no frame ID, return browsing context. So the issue is that we accept both a browser and a browsing context. So what we should do is if a browsing context is of type browser, instance of browser element, instance of Moz browser element. What's a good way of checking to see whether or not this thing is a browser element? Let's see. There are a couple of different. Yeah, or I'm currently learning C#. I needed to pause. It's been 3 hours since my last pause. Oh, well, I hope you're enjoying learning C#. I haven't touched that language in a while, but I hear good things. I believe Stardew Valley, which is a game that I enjoy, was written in C#. Selected browser. Okay, so what's a good way? You can say instance of, and do we have like a, what is it? Browser custom element. This thing, what is it? Moz browser. Do we have Moz browser as a global? No. So never mind. Is so a browsing context or browser. Do we have anything like that? Browser or browsing context. Yeah, browser, so we've got a couple of different instances of this where like content task spawn, for example, will determine if a thing is a browser or browsing context. It'll accept either. So let's see if there's any like pre-existing state-of-the-art special powers spawn. Let's look at special powers spawn. Special powers API. Special spawn. Where is special powers? Spawn. Here it is. Target. Browsing context for target. And what do they do? If it's an instance of an element. I see. Okay. So we can do something similar. just create a helper function. Function browsing context for target. Target. And then we'll just get from window. It's an element. I think we're just going to crib this because it's just a test function. Returns the browsing context associated with a particular target. A target could be a browsing context, in which case this just returns that browsing context. A Zool browser element, in which case, in this case, here, this is probably easier to read. In this case, oh, maybe I can do it like this, param target, and it's a union. How do you do this in JSDoc union param? When a thing takes multiple types, string or, you just put an or in between. Okay. So it'll be a browsing context or Zool browser or window, DOM window, target. The target to get the browsing context for. Return browsing context. Okay. So then what we can do is we'll call this a target. And then we'll go browsing context for target. And failing that, we'll go and get the default one. And then that should give us the top window. That should work, I think. Let's see if this passes. Let's just see what happens. Anti-Sidirp says they're enjoying C#. I'm going to take a walk, clear their head, but have a good day and good luck with the browser. I use Firefox. Hey, you're the best. Thanks for using Firefox. Thank you for using the product. We appreciate you. I think that's gonna do it. Now what I'll do is I'll get rid of this only, and let's run the test again, and then let's push it to try. Oh, argument 1 does not implement interface window proxy. 697. Yeah, if not target, return null. There you go. That's what I like to see. Okay, so let's run the whole folder, and then we'll push it to try, and then I think we're going to call it there, because we might have ourselves a solution here, folks. Just one sec. I got a notification Allow. I got a notification just now. I don't know if anyone here is a fan of the band Tool. I am. Apparently, Tidal, which is my preferred music streaming platform, now has Opiate, one of the first albums from Tool. Great. That's good news. If this test whole suite ends up taking more than, let's give ourselves a minute, then I'll call it. So what happened just now? Because I was going through like a list of strategies for trying to approach intermittent test failures, and then I just kind of did it, and I don't think there was like a very clean delineation from one to the other. So let me try and break down what happened. I tried to reproduce the issue, and then I remembered that I had reproduced the issue in a previous stream. I believe it wasn't the last stream, but maybe the one before that, even though there are no notes for that stream. So stream, I think, 279. And then I realized that I had done the investigation in there, which involved quite a bit of, like, I think it was a lot of trial and error and using verify and chaos mode to try and do some logging. And then what ended up happening was I'd pushed to try. There was a different failure, and the failure was because of a problem in how I had assumed callers to this promise request devices function. It's like a function that accepts kind of like it's very liberal in what it accepts as like its fourth or fifth parameter for, like, it'll accept a browser, or it will also accept a browsing context, like a bunch of different things. And I tightened that up a little bit, because what we ultimately want to do is resolve that request to a window and focus that window. And that's why the other test was failing. And originally the test was failing, I believe, because there's a race where the old indicator window was stealing focus, and the test was locking up waiting for a panel to open for a window that was not in the foreground. And we don't open panels for background windows. So, I've added a helper that makes it so that when we request devices, we also wait for the foreground window to become focused. So let's see if that helps. We got our full suite finished running. That's great. 14,531 tests. I added some documentation. Let's fold this into the test fix I wrote. Oh, we also need to... what's the test fix? Also, I need to re-enable the test on Linux. WebRTC browser. What was it? Linux. Where did it get disabled? Unprompted access. Legacy indicator is where it is. Legacy indicator. Prompted access. Let's see what happens if we fix that. So commit, amend. What was the bug number? 1712012, right? Yeah. And we're going to update the commit message. And then we'll push it up to try to see if that helps. And let's take a look at what try is saying about the original failure. The good news is I'm not seeing the failure for the well, I don't know if this is actually going to fix it. We need to push to try, but I think we've got a pretty good shot at having this be fixed. Let's see. Bug such and such. Wait for the focus the requesting window, or focus the requesting window in WebRTC tests using promise request devices. And then we'll have Jib maybe review that. before I push this up for review, I do want to push to try. So mock try. What tasks do I have here? Do I have one for Linux? I want to do like Linux. No. Okay, so we're gonna have to do it ourselves. Mock try fuzzy, and I'll say do an artifact build and rebuild it 9 times. So we'll do a bunch of retriggers. And the build I want to test this on is basically every Linux x64 build. Could not detect FZF. That's interesting. I didn't realize that I had used fuzzy before. I don't know why it's suddenly not working now. I have to reinstall FZF. Wild. Hey, any questions out there before we wrap up? I'm going to just push this to try to a bunch of try machines. And you know what? I wonder if can I just sequester a particular directory? Yeah, make it just be like this directory. So I'm actually going to bail out of fuzzy whenever it's done running and sequester the test run to a particular directory. I guess because I've changed the test framework, I might as well make sure that it passes all on Windows and Mac OS as well. So maybe I'll just do broad spectrum Linux, Mac OS, Windows test run. Okay, I guess we can cancel that last job, save some machine time. Come on. There we go. Quit. So hopefully it cached itself. What do I want to do here? What did I just say I was going to do? I was going to run in a particular directory. Browser base content test WebRTC. That is the directory I want to run. And then we'll call it a day. So let me know what you thought of this stream. There is a form in the agenda here to rate the episode. I'm actually going to put a link as well into the Twitch chat. Let me know what you thought of the stream. If you have any questions, link to form to rate this episode. If you have any suggestions for an episode name, you can supply it there. But if you have any questions about anything that happened or anything you want me to answer in the next episode, I didn't actually get into start at, end at, I'm afraid. So yeah, I didn't end up doing much of a talk. I ended up touching a little bit on verify and chaos mode. I didn't get into start at and end at, but maybe we'll do it next time we deal with an intermittent test failure. But yeah, let me know what you thought. Smurf D says, good info about how to look for intermittent test failures. Good. I'm glad. Well, while we're waiting for this, I can briefly describe what start at and end at is. Start at and end at are arguments you can pass to mocky test or mock test, which when you supply start at or end at, you can give it the name of a test inside of a manifest, like a browser.ini file, to start at and which one to end at, so that you don't have to run an entire directory. You can run a subset, which is helpful if the reason that the test failure is occurring is because of like state from a previous test that is being left behind, or like some kind of effect from a previous test, because that can happen where the tests are not run in isolation in individual processes, like they're run in the same browser process, one after the other. And so if one happens to leave some leftovers, or like there's this async job that's still kind of running from a previous test that didn't get awaited for or cleaned up, that can leak over and cause failures to occur later. And so one thing you can do is you can try and make it easier to reproduce the failure by, run the individual test, run it with chaos mode. And if that doesn't work, try running the test just before it, maybe 5 or 6 before it, up until it, and then do that with chaos mode, and then try the whole directory with chaos mode, and like try and narrow it down. And the more you can narrow it down, the better. That's my tip there. All right, so let's get some Moki tests here. Let's just do it across the board. Run them all. Run them all. Does that make sense? Windows, QR, debug. I think it makes sense. Test Fizz, E10S. I think I don't care so much about the tier 2 jobs on non-Linux platforms. So we'll keep that one. I'm going to turn off some of the freakier ones. I don't know what DFPI is. DFPI. DFPI. I don't know what that is. Neither does TreeHerder. So let's not do that job. Turn that one off. SPI, we'll turn that one off as well. Keep that one. Software render we'll keep on. Turn off the FPI. Don't know what that is. Software render, yes. ASAN builds, no. We'll turn off address and thread sanitization. We don't need. I don't know what those are. No. Software render, no fission. I'm gonna say no and no. E10 accessibility checks, yes. We're gonna keep those. All right, so these are the tests I'm gonna run. Let's see what happens. Hooray! So with that, I'm going to call it there. Thank you so much for Thank you so much for watching episode 281 of The Joy of Coding. I hope you enjoyed that. I will see you next week with episode 282. So, from all of us here at The Joy of Coding, have yourselves a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.